COVID-19 has dealt a blow to businesses, and the recent unrest in parts of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng has made things worse. The Franchise Association of South Africa recently went into discussions with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Small Business Department on issues affecting not only businesses but women in business as well. Let's get an update then on that with Pertunia Sibanyoni, chairperson of the Franchise Association of South Africa. Pertunia, grateful for your time on this Women's Day. Thank you for being on Newsroom PM. How large of a footprint do South African women have in the franchise space?
Good afternoon, Tembegile, and thank you for having me. South African women in the franchising space, as franchisors and franchisees, they own about 30% of the franchise network. The franchise network is about 48,000 outlets, and the franchising industry contributes an estimated turnover of about 734 billion. That's almost 14% of the GDP.
You were in conversation, as I was saying, recently with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Small Business Department, the ministry. What do you want to see them do, especially for the women-owned businesses in the space?
I think firstly, having the meeting with the president and the ministers, it was humbling to hear that they did acknowledge that they did not act in haste in terms of securing the safety and security of the businesses. So firstly, I think what we wanted them to do was to act fast. And now that we are forming part of this task team with the Minister of Small Business Development, what we have done as an association, we've also helped our entrepreneurs to be able to lodge the claims with SASRIA. And what we have welcomed from the small business development is the recovery funds that's being offered from the various funders. That's going to be in the form of a grant and only payable after 12 months. We think this is very good because it will rekindle the businesses that were not only impacted by COVID. And as we are 14 months away from the start of lockdowns, businesses are also now having to recover from the looting, and also the ones that had to close who were fearing the safety of their staff and employees.
And let's talk more about that, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the looting and violence in July on women-owned businesses. It's one thing for those who were insured, for example, to get the quick payouts. There will be people who get help from SASRIA through government assistance. But there's also been a lot of conversation about businesses that simply will not be able to reopen, that won't be able to survive COVID plus the unrest.
So it's also refreshing just to note that also businesses that were not insured are going to be assisted as well as the small development. But yes, indeed, some businesses were able not to survive COVID. But fortunately with franchising, so franchising has been known over the 42 years to basically be very innovative and also has quite a large number of entrepreneurs. And if I can talk specifically for women, in that they were able to adopt new business models. For instance, taking businesses online. As you know, that restaurants were mostly impacted by the lockdown as well as the alcohol ban. So they were able to also make sure that they service the businesses via deliveries and the ordering online, as well as if you look at the real estate agencies as well, as opposed to potential buyers now going to view the houses, they were able to set up online so that people can view the houses online, as well as the educational sectors as well. I mean, as you know, also people working from home, you're able to connect either Teams or Zoom. So those adaptations to be able to do online and also rekindle new business models were very good. And also I myself, I'm a franchisor running the used car franchise, Inspector Car. What we did as franchisors as well, we were able to waiver the monthly franchise fees that were payable, because as you can imagine, businesses without having any turnovers, you can't then now expect them to be paying franchise fees as well.
And Pertunia, going into franchising is not necessarily the cheapest form of business and entrepreneurship in South Africa. Have the costs come down, or is it still largely prohibitive?
So franchise businesses, you get obviously the bigger ones, but you've also seen quite a large number of small businesses that have come to the fore, franchisors that are global, that are coming into South Africa to have a footprint locally as well, such as in the laundry service. So those ones are looking for a low-cost investment, which is not as exorbitant as, for instance, as opening up like a KFC or a McDonald's. So we've got quite a lot of those. We've also got franchisors like 3 at 1, where typically you need renting space and the equipment to be able to do the services being offered there. So there's quite a number of low-cost franchising models, which we call the social and the micro franchises, that have gone up because of the need. And what we are also doing as well, we're working quite closely with our key partners with looking at reviving the township economy. So on Freedom Day, I was in Soweto in Vilakazi Street, talking about franchising and looking at the opportunities of how we can franchise maybe some of those small businesses like the mechanics or the hair salons, that are doing quite well. You find that a person is owning about 3 in the township itself. So we're willing to actually assist them to say how can they operationalize them and also get funding from the likes of CIFA, because they are giving funding for those businesses that don't need an exorbitant amount to start up.
I'm glad you mentioned CIFA, and earlier we discussed your meeting with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Small Business Ministry. At policy level, is South Africa getting it right? Because whenever you speak to small business people, they say, well, there's simply too much red tape to get even the smallest amount of money, and even then you have to submit not only your proof of ID, bank statements, you also have to bring your last born's birth certificate.
Thembekile, I think this is definitely why the collaboration with government and the captains of industry is important, because, for instance, us as a franchisor and association, we understand how small business operate. We've had the winning formula of small business development, entrepreneurship, as well as job creation. What we have done around policy level is through the township economy, we are collaborating with the likes of CIFA to say, first of all, crystallize your criteria in terms of what is it that you are looking for. And we've got the Soweto Chamber who have got a database of these entrepreneurs who talk to them on a daily basis, and they understand it. And I must say that in terms of the recovery of the funds, they were able to relax some of that as well. And also, more refreshing, acknowledge the informal businesses as well. That was quite refreshing as well, because, I mean, they don't have SARS compliance, as an example. Some of them don't even have bank accounts, as an example. So we are talking, bringing much closer to the people, and also talking to the entrepreneurs themselves, telling us this is how we operate. And I mean, I was also born from a township, so I fully understand how the township works. My dad owning a taxi business, you can fully understand how those businesses operate. So they are not your formal businesses like your large corporations as such.
So you were born for entrepreneurship, weren't you, having come from a family that was run on the taxi business? So good to speak to you, Pertunia Sibanyoni, chairperson of the Franchise Association of South Africa. Enjoy the rest of your Women's Day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.